Hi, my name is Solana, and this is Fight to Inhale. I guess this would be my intro video. I was diagnosed at the age of 3 with cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic disease that affects the lungs. It affects our sweat glands. We produce too much salt in our sweat. It can affect our kidneys, our digestive system. Even after a while, the strain of breathing, it can affect our hearts. So it's a huge mess all in one. And then the medications obviously have certain side effects, like, currently I take prednisone, and as you can see, I have the lovely moon face. Um, but at the same time, I wanted to create this Fight to Inhale, not just to document everything that I've been through or am going through, but also just to show that CF isn't the definition of me or any other patient who has it. It's a part of us, but it's not all of us. Um, so I should also point out that in 2013, I had a double lung transplant. So you'll notice that I don't do a lot of coughing in my videos, which is pretty awesome. Um, but I still have the digestive issues. I have cystic fibrosis related diabetes. I even have bone issues from some of the medications I've taken. So transplant isn't a cure, but I guess you could say it's a form of treatment. Um, so a little bit about me. Um, like I said, I was diagnosed at the age of 3. So, and in my family, we had never heard of cystic fibrosis, and that was pre-internet time. So, couldn't just go online and look it up and try to get a definition. We relied a lot on what the doctors told us, what the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation provided pamphlets. So there wasn't, at the same time, what we know now seems to be, tremendous leaps compared to what we knew back in 1984 when I was diagnosed. One of the first things they did was put me on prednisone. So at that time, they considered 40 milligrams a day as a small dose, which we now know that is definitely not a small dose. And because of that, I do have some bone and hip problems, which kind of sucks, but I try not to let it stop me. Heating pads are really good. Um, and I can tell you, after I was diagnosed, my mom will describe I started to thrive. At the time, I was always hungry. My poor mom just didn't know how to keep me satisfied. And after being diagnosed and actually getting the medications and enzymes, I actually started feeling satisfied. So I'm sure my mom can attest that was probably a huge relief for her. And at the same time, I can say that it was also a huge adjustment. Like I said, nobody in my family had heard of cystic fibrosis, and all of a sudden, my mom was trying to readjust our lifestyle. I mean, at that time, it was, get the calories in no matter what. They weren't specifying like the difference between healthy calories and not so healthy calories. So it was put mayonnaise on everything, which by the way now I cannot stand mayonnaise. It just grosses me out. Just saying. But I actually like my vegetables, so I don't know, maybe hint to you parents, just tell your kids they can't have vegetables and they're supposed to eat ice cream all the time. But I do like my veggies. But to point out, I am not a vegetarian. I do use my main protein source is from animals. Sorry if that offends anybody. That's what works for me, and that's what I do. I have tried meatless diets and trying to make sure I had the right amount of proteins, and it just didn't work. my body itself responds better to animal protein, so that's what I use. Um, I can say my family at the time, we didn't have things like the vest, so we had my mom and my grandparents and my stepdad. They had to learn how to provide percussive therapy, where um, you would cup your hand and it had to produce a popping sound. Can't see if I can do this. You had to get just the right amount of air trapped between your hand when you were thumping on the your child who had cystic fibrosis. It definitely got some looks. I remember it was really funny. My mom at one point had the curtains open in our house, and she was, because it was a really nice day, and she was doing my percussive therapy, and a guy was walking by, and to an outsider, it looks like you're beating your child, and there I am upside down reading a book. So I'm sure he wasn't quite sure what to think of that. My back before, and also before we had a lot of the seatbelt laws we do have now, my mom would do my percussive therapy in the car too, and while my stepdad Frank would be driving, and we had a lot of unusual looks from people. But overall, like I said, those were things that we did to help me stay alive. We really emphasized hand washing. This was before we started keeping CFers apart. So I did get to meet other CF people with CF. I went to the camps. So for me, I come from a different era where we actually got to hang out. If more than one patient with CF was in the hospital, we got to share a room and hang out and talk. And it wasn't until about the time I was an adult when the roles changed. So I can give my opinions on that later. But so for me, it was, I learned from other CFers, and we, especially when we were teens, we'd compare notes, and oh yeah, my parents always do this, and because we, some of us felt like our parents were overprotective, and maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I do consider myself lucky. I spent a lot of time on my family's ranch, so I was around animals and fresh air and swam in the creek, and probably, I can see some parents probably cringing now because, there's a lot of bacteria there. But at the same time, mentally, it was really good for me. And um, I, I can say spending time up there was probably one of the best things for me personally. I love animals, so I loved being around them. I loved, helping my grandpa with feeding the cows. I loved seeing the goats. Loved getting fresh eggs from the chickens. It was, to me, it was the ideal setup. And now I have my two fur kids who run around my house, and I can't picture my life without them. And so that's another part of me. I have this great love for animals in general. So I have my two dogs. I have a couple of cats who currently are staying with a friend. Um, and I mean, I've had rabbits. My sisters and I always had pets. So we had rabbits and cats, and there was a bird, and there were hamsters, and there were fish. Um, it that's it. I'd say that really helped us along. And seriously, teenage years are awful to begin with. And then if you have anything that sets you apart from everyone else, it kind of gets a little tough. And being able to come home and having your purring kitty curl up on your lap while you're having a really bad day, it makes all the difference. And say we spent a lot of time visiting. I'd say we visited the coast almost once a year, which at the time I didn't quite understand, the science behind it all, and that's before hypertonic saline became available. I used to just tell my mom that I felt normal when I was visiting the coast. first show up and I'd be hacking like crazy, just nasty mucusy wads, and that was gross. Um, Usually about after a day of that, I felt completely clear and I could run around, and I felt very normal. And Luckily, some research actually went into that because I'm guessing more than one CFer was noticing it, and we now have hypertonic saline as part of the therapies that you're basically breathing in salt water or I guess you could say salty air to help clear up all that nasty mucus. And say, and it's a good thing for us. And we have an issue with salt to begin with. I don't know if any of you've noticed, like, if you have a friend with cystic fibrosis or a cousin or anybody you'll notice they probably pour a lot of salt on their food, more than what most people would consider healthy. But for us, that's very important. We need the salt. Our cells do not bring in the needed sodium chloride that's needed for proper cellular function. So, as you notice, not having enough has caused havoc for our bodies. And so we're dumping salt in everything to try to make sure our bodies can have enough. Summertime is really tough I know for me, it's very difficult. I've actually had to come up with ways to make sure my body gets as much salt in as possible, because in reality, I hate potato chips. Can't stand them, so telling me to eat bagged potato chips just doesn't work. In a later video, I will go through and show what I use for my summer survival kit. Let's see. I love swimming. I've always been in love with the water in general. Unfortunately, where I live right now, there's not a pool, and my gym doesn't have a pool, so I'm usually waiting until summer and, spending time at the creek, and if I can convince my husband, we're going to the ocean, things that, allow me to actually just get in the water, because I just love it. It's very soothing for me. It And I know it doesn't look like it, but I do love to swim, so kind of nice. Another thing I love is hiking. I luckily, because of where I live, we have so many places where we can hike. And when I say so many, I mean a lot of different places, which is really nice for someone like me who actually enjoys being out in nature. And luckily, our dogs love it too. So if you ever see a couple out there with two little dogs and they have their own little packs, because, we make them carry their own stuff, it's probably my husband and I, because we do enjoy going out hiking, and we got our dogs into it at a very young age. So for them, that's just part of their lives, and it works for us. And it's helped me stay pretty healthy, which is a number one thing. And like I said, I had a double lung transplant, so I don't have the lung issues anymore. So I don't have to do the breathing treatments, no more vest therapy. I don't have to lug around an oxygen tank. That probably was one of my favorite parts. And but that doesn't mean every person with CF doesn't always get to have that double lung transplant. So you'll notice that there'll be, the person with CF in your life, they're going to be doing the therapies, their breathing treatments and vest, and it's a lot. It takes a lot of time out of your day, I can tell you. For me, I had to invest 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the middle of the day, 2 hours in the evening, and then as I got sick, I had to increase those times to 4 to 6 times a day. And so you're feeling like all you're doing is living for treatments, and that's a really tough thing mentally to deal with. Sorry, I got hiccups. So for me, I had time back on my hands, which has been great. I have my own tutoring company. own tutoring business, I should say. And this past month, I actually started offering sessions online, which so far has been pretty successful. And I'm really hoping that that branches out more because it allows me to work, but still in doing something I love because I love to teach on a one-on-one setting. But if you've noticed, kids can be fairly germy. So this actually helps me keep my own lungs safe because catching a cold still or the flu or anything can possibly put me into rejection. And that's, that's kind of a scary term for somebody who has had a transplant. So again, I'll go through more of that later. These, I think I've gone pretty far in here as it is. But I just wanted to give you guys a general idea of who I am outside of having cystic fibrosis. Like I said, it is part of me, but it's not all of me. And as you can see, I'm recording this in my sewing room / office. So you see my fabric where I like to sew. I have yarn over here because I also like to crochet. These are things that I enjoy doing, and it's not just, me sitting doing treatments and thinking 24/7 about having CF. There's more to it. We are people. We have feelings. We have all these other interests besides our genetic condition. Don't get me wrong. Well, we probably can recite medical terms like nobody's business. Some of us could probably hold our own medical degree if we wanted to. But that's what we do to survive, to make sure we are thriving the best we can with cystic fibrosis. But but we all have our other interests. I'm a huge reader. I love to read. I also like to write. Nothing published yet, so sorry, can't offer any of that. If you can see the picture in the background, I love mermaids. I love the ocean in general. So one of my nicknames is the Salty Mermaid because but that's that's all part of me, and it's great having all these other interests. And I wanted you guys to see there's so much more to us than just our treatments, just the disease. There's just a lot out there, and I think that's probably it for my intro. Hopefully I'll make these things a little bit shorter next time. But there was a lot I just wanted to explain about myself and introduce myself and tell you a little bit about me. So if you guys have any questions, just put that in the comments and we'll go from there. So have a great day.